Hey everyone! Welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Diana Lizarazo, and today's guest speaker is Pavel, and I'm going to try to say his last name properly because I can see he's on, so he's going to laugh at me. Blazejewicz. That's I'll ask you to tell me again properly. But on Behind the Scenes, we will get to talk about, we'll get to hear about the type of strategy that was used for that property, what the plans were. We'll get to hear about the numbers, some high level numbers of how it went. And the best part of the show, we get to hear about the problems encountered, how they solved them, and if it was something new for them, what they would do differently next time. So if you guys are excited, let's give Pavel some hearts. Let's welcome him on to the show. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, let me just double check. There we go. Hi, Pavel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Butchered your last name, but at least this time I tried, not like last time.
Amazing. You've done an amazing job. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
That was very complicated. I was like, for the last 10 minutes, I'm just like rehearsing it, giving myself a headache. And I'm like, that is a complicated last name.
Polish surnames get that. And even my wife kept her surname. She's like going, I'm not playing this game. So, yeah.
So thanks so much for coming on. So let's just give people a little recap and just tell, what is your real estate strategy? What kind of real estate investor are you? Whatever you like to share.
Thank you. Because I do it with my wife, without her support, is not much would actually happen. We are a buy and hold couple. We don't, do flips, nothing like this. We come into a project for like 5 to 7 years. And there's a plan for that. So, we can underwrite a deal and the exit strategy would be, well, most likely 5 years and onwards, right? The longest we have going on right now is for 10 years, right? So we'll see how that one evolves. It looks interesting, but yeah, here what we do is 5 years is the minimum that we go into, and it gives you that peace of mind and well, you can certainly predict a lot of things, right? Because in 5 years, like we have a little bit of tumble right now with the last year, right? So within the next 4 years, well, certainly things are going to pick up a little bit, right? So we like it. It gives us less anxiety when it comes to projects, because how flips can go and all these. So we implement also a small portion of rehab and just go in. It's like a BRRRR method, but a longer BRRRR method. So we'll stretch over 5 years, right? So.
That's awesome. And like you said, the good thing of these kind of strategies is really it's very forgiving. If some mistakes happen during, like, let's say very close to the beginning, or maybe you buy at the top, I mean, within 5 years, within 10 years, those, like, it evens out and you're winning again anyways. Like you said, a flip, definitely have to be very strict on the numbers, very in the know of what's going on, because it's definitely not a very forgiving type of strategy.
Exactly. You need to, well, what pushes us into this strategy right now is that we don't do it full time. We do it, as a side, and we have people helping us, of course, to manage everything. But, we have our own thing, right? I'm an IT engineer and I like that. It's like I'm not planning to quit anytime soon. It gives me that, the creation and that portion is being fed by the IT. This one is a long-term goal, right? It's like within 10 years or 15 years, right? It's like we will be not dependent on the job. Let's put it this way, right?
Yeah, great point. And I think that's just a great point to reiterate is that, we all have very different circumstances. So really working within them and figuring out what real estate strategy works within our circumstances is so important, because there's just so many different ways to invest in real estate. And it's just like finding the one that works for you. So that's awesome that you found it. So which specific deal are you going to be sharing with us today? Tell us a little bit about what was the intended strategy that you are, I mean, we know the strategy long-term hold, but what were your plans with it? What kind of renovations or whatever? What did you want to get done with it?
Okay. A year ago, exactly a year ago, we closed on a triplex. The plan was for 5 years again. This triplex in Northern Ontario, Sudbury, North Bay, that portion. It needed a lot of TLC. There was after going through it, it was a rough building. Let's put it this way. In an upcoming portion of North Bay, right? It was a little bit on a rough side, but we've
In a good
been
area.
investing in North Bay for some time, so we kind of know where to go and what to expect if you go there. So we knew what we were signing up for. There were issues with the tenants that were currently living there. There was issues with heating.
But did you find this property? Was it it was an empty, or you mean the tenants? You inherited tenants, or you mean tenants that it was inherited tenants?
Yeah, we got the building was fully populated, and we inherited a tenant.
Oh.
And you know how Ontario is, and if you have an issue with the tenant, so that was a very interesting learning option for us to understand exactly what are the steps. You hear stories and you're like, it can't be that bad. Well, hey, right?
You're like, oh, maybe it is.
Right. So, but there's again, when you face this, what I liked about this building, it taught us so many things. If you face an
Sorry,
issue,
before we get into all the learning experiences, because I just want to get through like the big picture on what your plan was first, is so initially your plan was then to slowly, I guess, turn over the tenants. Within what kind of time frame were you initially thinking to do a turnover, and then I'm assuming renovate each unit, I guess, right?
There was only one and a half unit that needs to be redone, and the problematic tenant was only the back unit, so there was only one unit. The rest, no problems
That's
whatsoever,
pretty okay.
right? So, and we did a little bit of renovation as they were in it, because there were complaints, and there was the windows weren't shutting down, shutting. So you want to make sure we like to keep our buildings safe for our tenants, because we care about them. So we kitted it out with all the fire stuff, fire extinguishers and all the smoke detectors and everything. Now when we will, because it's still in the future, regain the back unit, and it's coming. We found a solution that worked for everybody. We didn't have to go to the LTB, even though we submitted, but we managed to reconcile prior to the hearing date, which is great, because we found a win-win solution. So we're happy. The person
That's awesome.
happy. Yeah, it is really, because sometimes you do need to realize that you're playing with somebody else's life and life conditions as well, right? So
100%.
right. So that's a big portion of this business, making sure that you're that you're understanding the situation from the other side as well, right? It's like, I do appreciate there's issues and sometimes the payments and stuff like that, but we always like to talk to the tenants before we do any drastic moves. So in this case, yeah, we did file, because again it takes that long, but we were there was an ongoing discussion. Our property management helped us with that. Thanks to their help, we were able to find another unit that the lady decided that it's okay. There's of course restrictions that we need to make sure that the unit is living up to, that she has physical condition that she needs to. There has to be a specific unit. So it took a little bit to find it, and you know how the hot market is right now. The rentals, they come and go within minutes sometimes, right? So it was challenging, but we managed to do it, and hopefully on the 5th everybody will be happy.
That's amazing. That's great. And then so let's do some, before we get into more into the problems and stuff. So what did you buy the property for?
The property was bought for $375.
$375. And what was your budgeted renovations for that project?
So we wanted to put in about $35,000 into it. What we had to pivot a little bit was the fact that there is a big fire exit wooden staircase, and it's a 2.5 stories high building, right? So this staircase is quite extensive, and it was in the insurance actually went to say, can you tell us if this is sturdy and if it's okay? And it turns out it had to, we had to redo it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This was a little bit more expensive than I expected, right? Because we even danced around building from the metal staircase just to have it done and dusted. That was like a $60,000 discussion. So we were like, oh, well, that's not it. So we made it good. It's like, so it's safe now. And, small things like that. One of the learning things that you mentioned was exactly that. If there is a big wooden structure, make sure that it's is living up to all the standards.
And you're lucky it was wooden, because metal ones are even more expensive. It's funny, you wouldn't think, like, now I understand, because a lot of people will say, for example, if you can try to make the stairs from the inside, because it's actually a lot more expensive to put stairs on the outside than it is to have them on the inside. And like that, even more, if you're doing like metal stairs, those are even more insanely expensive. So your budget, you said it was 35, right? I think 35. And then so how much extra then, with the extra things that were unforeseen, what did your budget end up being for renovations?
It will be done somewhere around $45,000, about $10,000 over. But with that, what we're going to be doing, we're replacing all the windows. They've been ordered and they're actually ready to go. We're just, waiting for the weather to be a little bit better, which is, I think, very soon. It's like I see, the snow melting finally. Oh my goodness, right? I see my grass. So that's nice. So, the windows will be coming in. We're changing the furnaces. There's 2 furnaces. So, there's stuff. But with that said, the winter, if you have a building, such a big building, and it's not isolated properly, you lose a lot of heat. So, the bills that we were getting for the gas consumption, especially with the increases that are happening all over the globe right now, they were quite interesting to see. I didn't know that they can go as high as this, right? So we hired a heating plumbing company that, we went through the building and we know what to do and what to change. We'll be putting isolation on the very top. So pretty much a year after taking over that building, it was green all the time, financially wise. But it is going to be more greener if we go in right now and about 2-3 months, it's going to be a very good cash flowing property, stabilized, and in the condition that we want to see our buildings.
That's
new windows.
Amazing.
It's good. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So you had planned, the windows were already part of the plan in your budget. And it was just then the stairs that wasn't part of the plan. In it.
We didn't expect.
And then so right now, sorry, what did you say?
No, we just didn't expect the cost that is going to be at that level for the staircase outside.
Yes. And then so right now, you're not cash flowing yet, right?
No, we're cash flowing day one. So we
cash flowing from day one. So that's amazing. So you're cash flowing from day one, and then so you'll be even more after, once you replace your tenant, you'll be even more cash flowing. And in that unit, you still then have to do the renovations for that one, right?
That unit has to be pretty much gutted. So between the new furnaces, the windows, and that the unit, it was about $35,000, and now with it's $45,000 all in, and the building will be stabilized. Everybody will be paying on time, hopefully, and we'll be able to provide them with a safe environment.
That's amazing. And so you're right now cash flowing with just 2 incomes, though, right?
Yeah.
Because one of them's not paying. So that's right, or no?
We got quite lucky because this learning was a little bit cheaper for us. There was a government portion that was coming into that account every month, which is like 2/3. So we were losing 1/3 of the rent. So it wasn't the worst case scenario, but it certainly we analyzed the situation because it could have been way worse. And then the building would be cash flowing. But the fact that we were getting like 2 full rents and then the 2/3 of the other one, it was cash flowing pretty much all the time.
That's amazing. And so after then, once you have the tenant out, what are you expecting your cash flow to look like once renovations are done and you get the new tenant in?
Well, by cash flow, we mean all the expenses and insurance and vacancy.
Well, I just meant the actual just cash flow, like minus the expenses. You know what? Or you can even go. Pardon?
$700. About $700. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great. And then so now let's get into the action. Like so, let's get into the problem. So with the tenant, what was like what were the issues for because for her not to be paying rent or what like why did she even consider to move out?
The problem started in August last year. I don't know exactly what happened because we didn't get to that nitty gritty type of information. That we spoke a couple of times. I went to North Bay a couple of times just to have a face-to-face discussion, and we were getting nowhere. I do appreciate there's different circumstances of everybody's life, and the fact that we were still in the green. We weren't in rush. We were trying to help rather than to force evict or do any renovation, something like this. So there was a couple of other options that were available to us, but we didn't want to use them, right? Because we knew that if we pushed for it, the lady wouldn't have a place to go. So like there has to be a line, right? So our focuses went on finding the unit that she would be comfortable moving in, talking to the landlord of that building. And it turned out that landlord actually knew that person, so everything was lining up, and yeah, we're actually signed at 9 yesterday, so we should be.
That's amazing. That's great. So then her issues was more than around. Then was the issue really just she couldn't afford that unit was the issue, and she just needed to go to a cheaper unit?
She couldn't afford her portion of the rent, right? So the government rent was coming in, and to that 1/3 that she was covering, even though she had tenants, it wasn't. And when we started seeing damages in the window was missing, it was kicked out, the whole thing was kicked out. I'm like, oh. Right? So, and trying to get a window quickly, I wasn't able to do it. It took me 8 weeks. Right, so there was it wasn't still during the winter time, but certainly it didn't help with the bills, right? And as mentioned, they were quite high as they were because
yeah.
Right. So
and so they're all inclusive then. So you take care of the gas, electricity, and water, I guess.
Yes.
You guys take care of it.
We convert that in Ontario. We convert that for us to take care of it because if there is a problem and the tenant stops paying, then the gas meter and electricity meter can be taken out of the unit by the vendor, and getting it back is I prefer to deal with myself and make sure that the bills are covered, and then we have all inclusive deals with the tenant.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way actually about the utilities.
Yeah, it's in Ontario we spotted that. We also seen it in Europe before, so it wasn't anything new. And we know how difficult it can be and how much time it gets. So if you want to fill in another tenant into the unit and you don't have electricity because the whole meter is missing, well, somebody has to come in and that is treated differently. Like in Alberta, they do it case by case. Over here in Ontario, they have a procedure, and it might take between 2 and 3 weeks. So you're losing 2 and 3 weeks, right? So before somebody can move in, right? So that's it complicates stuff. And yeah, we chose this path. It's like whoever is comfortable with one. Right?
Yeah, and it's great that well, specifically with the tenant that you're able to work things out and find a solution, because I think usually this is the problem. It's as you were doing, it's like you're trying to figure out a solution for them, which is sometimes I feel like a lot of people forget. It's like stop thinking about yourself in the situation and you think about the other person, because when you can think about the other person and help them out, you're also helping yourself out. And I think that's like a very important quality to have, is to be very problem solving for the other people, because sometimes like that, a lot of the times is with tenants is misunderstandings or not even asking, and you just kind of maybe they think the worst and they're just like, oh, okay, they're never going to leave. And, like that, it is always best, exactly what you're saying, to still go through the process of the eviction. But I mean, if you yourself can get it done, still try. Because we're actually in the same boat, actually. We also sent in to do an eviction.
Mhm.
but we're also actually in the process of actually they're leaving also too. And it's
Okay.
just because finally sent it in, but same thing, like you still want to keep on working on it and figuring it out and trying to find a solution for the problem.
Yes, I fully agree. It's I don't know if everybody, but I was a tenant for quite some time in a couple of countries, and I've seen different approaches from landlords, and I know what kind of a landlord I want to be. Right, we've been a landlord with my wife since 2005, and I 2007, and we're not changing the values. Right, so
Mhm.
this is we put the people first, and then the money to a certain extent, of course, right? So we want to allow
Yeah.
anybody living for free, and
Mhm.
the eviction is going to be happening, but in whatever the law allows, and
Mhm.
you know,
And I think it's the money will always come, right?
that's right.
If you're solving the problems, helping them out, I feel like the money becomes a byproduct of it, right? It's just like if you are trying to help out and get things going and done, the money does come. I feel like if it's the other way around, right? If you're um, being greedy about things and only focusing on yourself, usually that's when you see like the money is not coming because that helping type of attitude is, I think, what really makes it come. Like I feel like if you're doing well, if you're making a lot of money, like billionaires, how many people have they helped and with what they do? They're billionaires for a reason because it's like the amount of service they provide is insane, that and it's the same thing. It's just I think it just comes with the territory. If you're making money, it's because you've helped in some way.
Yes, I think so. The win-win, and the more people. This is what we discovered some time ago already. The more people you help, the better you're off. It's like even if it's only the sole portion, is way more important for us than money. Money, as you mentioned, is a byproduct of the way you operate in life, right? It's like money is important, of course. It's you need to have it, but if
Mhm.
also another interesting portion was in Ontario the appreciation is quite high. So if you manage to hold on to the asset for 5 years, you will not lose your money. I at least this is what I think. uh,
Mhm.
so the fact that the building was still green and we were, year in and another 4 years planned. Uh, well, North Bay, if I'm not sure if you know, but it's been continuously going up a little bit, not too much, but just steadily up, right? So this building, the 500 or 600, what was missing in a bigger scale of the situation really didn't mean that much. And for me to, throw somebody out literally on the street, no, that wouldn't be worth it, right? I like my sleep, and I.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, and it's just you don't like same thing. Like I feel like if you're not helping them, who knows what other things will happen, right? Because and here, I mean, you can't throw someone out of the street anyways, or I mean, unless if you're meaning like the eviction part side, like once it makes it to there. But it's like we can't get rid of them, so it's like might as well work together to find the solution and figure out how you make it a win-win for
That's right.
everyone.
That's right. And
Mm-hmm.
we did that, and super happy with the result. So for now,
That's
uh,
amazing. Any other things that happened on there that were problems that you had to work on to figure out? Like, did you have anything in the renovation so far that's happened?
the times, right? So like when we were ordering the windows was in September, and they've been ready about 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I received a phone call that they've been ready. So that's like 5 months, right? So coming back to the flipping portion, or any of the quicker strategies that you need to really mind the budget and the timing. Yeah, you really need to make sure that you know where you stand, and that you're whoever you're dealing with, that they can deliver the products, right? Because if all of a sudden your project is delayed by 5 months because you can't get the windows, because the glass is coming from Mexico and for some reason it can't come now, you need to count that in, right? So that's why we like the buy and hold strategy and the prolonged burr method, because we don't really care that much. It's like, yeah, sure, it's we make sure that that it's everything is okay, but we need to replace the windows, and we will replace the windows. If it happens on the third month or 15th month, you know what I mean? Not a big change for us, right? We're not
100%.
right.
A very forgiving is definitely like you're saying, very very forgiving because Yeah. Imagine if your project on a flip is supposed to be like a 2 month
Yeah,
project, three
that's
months
it.
maybe, and then like 5 months, and now they're starting to come. That throws off like, all your profits, and probably you're going into debt if that planning isn't made or figured out.
Exactly.
So 100% completely agree with you. And then actually you were talking about a window that was kicked out. So which I think that's another problem, right? Like your expenses were getting quite high. While you were waiting for the window, like how did you try to mitigate, I guess, as much as you could the loss of the utility, like the heat and everything?
So it started in August. We spotted that the windows was missing. So in August it wasn't a problem. It's still warm. It was okay. We just covered it with foil, and that was good. But as we were coming to colder months, what we did, we actually put two plywoods and isolation in between, because well, that was the only way we could do it, and to make sure that the person is also safe in there, right? Because that
Mhm.
was quite a fall if somebody tipped over. So that's from the liability perspective. You need to do all the efforts. If the first plywood was taken down the next day, I'm like, okay, let's do it again, and let's do it more properly, so they can't really take it out. So we did it from the outside and inside, and isolation in between, so that stayed till the window actually came, right? So that was what we've done. That was the only thing we could think of, because same as you said, right? It's like it was the bill started racking up quite quickly whenever it got a little bit colder.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea, putting the insulation on the inside. And so what was causing it? Like, was someone purposely trying to tear it down? Is that what was happening? Or just like how does a window just all of a sudden, or it was like, when you went to go visit, was there actually no wind? There was always just no window there?
Yeah, I asked you questions about that situation, but you're getting answers that are you don't know. And the whole window was gone, like with the framing and everything, right? I'm like,
Oh,
where did the
wow.
window go? Yeah, so,
You kind of have a hole in your house, just
right?
saying.
Was there a window there? I think there was a window. So yeah,
But
it's
you said you put a piece of wood there, and even that came off.
yeah.
So, but someone like ripped it off
It
then.
was done from the inside, because it was still warmish outside, but not as warm. And plus, the I spoke to insurance, and he was like, you need to do something with the hull, right? Because it's really easy to fall. And then how do you explain that bit? So I put a plywood
Hmm.
from the inside, and they just took it out, right? It's like it was a couple of screws, so it doesn't take long to take them out,
So
right?
the
Uh,
tenant just like really wanted their fresh air.
I think so. Yes, they really, really, really wanted it. But I had my cover done, because I took pictures, and sent it to insurance companies, going, listen, that's what we've done. We're waiting for the windows. So you need to also be mindful of what's happening with your properties. At least I think, because it's quite easy to for an accident, if you're not vigilant, or if you don't know what's happening, well, you can end up being the one paying for it, right? Even if it's not your fault.
Yeah, because I mean, you are the owner, you're liable for what happens on your property.
That's right.
And even that's also why, actually, I don't think that would cover it, but why it's so important to have tenant insurance, making sure your tenants have tenant insurance, which something we are starting to adopt now. Actually, I'm not sure if you guys do this or anyone in the audience does, which is, I think, a good tip, is that the landlords should also pay for the tenant insurance. And the reason I say that is because if you're going into tough times, someone loses their job, you know, one of the first things to go is and it's hard for a landlord to know, like you have to always be checking up and making sure that they have their tenant insurance. And I can't say we do that really. Um, and the thing is like that, if they're trying to cut down expenses because maybe income drops or something, one of the first things that will go is they'll probably get rid of their tenant insurance. And so that's something we've started to adopt, is that we're now like with the rent comes the tenant insurance, because we know we will always pay their tenant insurance, and then we can always confirm that at least it's there. So in case something happens, not everything is going into our home insurance, it's going to the tenant insurance. And they still like sign everything and do it. So it is under them, but at least we're paying to make sure
Yeah,
that it's theirs.
It is certainly a fact to make sure, because as you say, they can go off and show you the insurance and cancel it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
What we do, we have that in our lease agreement, that you must have the tenant insurance, and there is a proof, so they give us the proof. We don't check if they go off and cancel it the next day, but we have a proof that we tried, and they signed up that they had it, and we have a copy that they had it. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's if certainly your way is giving you more security. So we might look into that. It's not that expensive. It always
It's
surprises me
not,
that
yeah, it's not that bad.
price, like 200
Mm-hmm.
something dollars, and they people don't want to spend that money on insurance, and then when the flood comes and you need to replace it, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's yeah, like I think in a month, I think you're paying like between 25 to 50
yeah
dollars or something. It's really not that bad. Especially, I mean, if you have the cash flow and you're not worried about it, like that we make enough money on them that we're just like we'll take care of it because the last thing I want is either stuff like to go onto our insurance,
yeah
like the house insurance, or it doesn't get covered and it goes into like you just have to take care of the expenses. So it's just, yeah, definitely a tip for people if they want to. I think it's a good, I don't know, I personally like that.
it's great. It gives you the security. We might actually think about it for the next ones as well, or when it lapses.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah.
And so you were talking about some problems with the tenants, not problems with the tenants, sorry, problems that the tenants had with the house. So what kind of little fixes here and there did you have to make, and were these, like to say, surprises that you knew after you acquired it?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, there was an inspection. We don't buy buildings without inspection, and these times are over now. So it's great because this market is way more calm, right? So you can actually take your time to do the due diligence. So we were implementing that strategy before, even if they didn't like this idea that it's going to be inspected. Well, we just walked out and we didn't do the deal if they there was no option for inspection. So that was the first line of defense. It comes with a list of stuff to do. So after the acquisition, we either go there ourselves, which doesn't happen too often nowadays, or we send the teams that we work with to fix these issues, and we get them done pretty much immediately. Stuff like windows and furnaces, the more costly stuff, that's budgeted into the whole project and the life of the project. Again, we jumped on the windows immediately because we knew the winter was coming, and gullibly as we thought, going in September was a good enough time to get them in. But no, it's like, so for the next winter we'll be ready. Furnaces the same thing. Furnaces were a little bit more expensive, so we decided, okay, let's park that for now. We had the money there just as a working capital, just in case they gave in, because that was like 30 plus years of infrastructure, and knowing the Murphy's law, you know what I mean? Like if you don't have the money, this is exactly when it's going to break. So we're like, no, we'll keep the money on the side just in case it goes during the winter. And in North Bay, the winters can get quite cold. It's I'm down south in Ajax and Toronto region. It doesn't get that cold, right? It's even if I started driving one day over here, it was -11. I got up there, it was -30. Right? So that's a proper change.
And I've seen
Uh,
my husband went to go do a project up there once to help a friend that was in dire need, another fellow investor friend. And he said at the time he went, it was like -40. And people were saying like how normal it is up there. And I think you said you were in North Bay. I think we were a little bit closer, like Thunder Bay or something. I think we were a little bit closer. I can't remember exactly, or Sudbury. I think it was
Sudbury.
Sudbury. I
Yeah,
forget.
yeah, yeah. I remember
But
your husband
but he
talking about
was just
Sudbury.
they were telling us how normal like -40 is, and my poor husband is like popsicling over there. It's
Well,
like
you're not used to
different
this,
level
right?
of cold that we're not used
I
to.
know. It's so yeah, so you need to take that into account, right? So we had the money saved just in case it gives in. It didn't. We got lucky, right? It's like but again, you want to be safe, right? So we didn't want to spend that money before it. We know that it's okay, and now we're kind of hopeful, and we're going to use the summertime to make sure that this building is straightened up for the next winter, and it should be smooth sailing since now on for another 4 years, right? So it's stabilized. We'll get the proper tenants in. And that's it. let's move on to another one.
That's amazing. So then you didn't have any problems then after closing of like tenants saying they don't like other things of like what tenants are doing or anything. Then there was none of those kind of then
Yeah.
issues. Everyone was okay with each other. It was just really related to the house, which like you said, you were able to find that out from the inspection.
From the we in North Bay we have actually a very good thing going on. We have a great property management. We acquired a couple of buildings through him because he's there. He knows, right? If I plan to sell my building, he's the first guy I talk to, right? So then he makes the phone call, and that was this kind of a situation. Now that was a win-win for him too, because well, who am I going to hire to manage that, right? So he kept the building. So from the tenant perspective, nothing changed.
Mm,
So that was
that's amazing. That's
yeah, that was
great.
good. That was good. We just did make sure that the initial phase of taking over the building is living up to our standards, and the safety options, fires, and we spend a little bit. We always spend a little bit more on inspections and fire department and stuff like that, just to make sure that everything is okay. Because no deal is better than a bad one, right? So
What was the last thing you said? Now is what?
no, no deal is better than a bad one, right? So if it
Oh,
was
yeah.
a building without a fire or not living up to a fire code, and all of a sudden you need to rebuild half of it, it's you need to be mindful of these things as well, right?
100%. And again, I feel like this all goes to like your insurance, right?
That's true. That's
You
true.
know, like, the last thing you want is like that you don't have a fire extinguisher in the house, and then your house just goes up in flames, and you're just like, oh, okay, now I don't have a house,
Yeah, no,
or I have to like who knows put how much money into it.
exactly. And recently we learned about equipment breakage. I can't remember how they phrased it. And I'm like, what's this? Thinking about the 30 plus years of furnaces, right? I'm like, so if it breaks, are you going to give me the money back? And I was like, no. If it breaks and causes damage, like a fire, a flood, something like this part is covered, but the item isn't, right? So but if there's a damage due to that, so that's also something that we ticked when we were renewing it. It kind of makes sense, especially in this scenario that we have for that building, right? So yeah, it's fun. It's like insurance is very important. That's true.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah. And any other problems that you wanted to discuss on about this project or things or even things that you weren't expecting or didn't think about and they kind of came up during this?
Well, as mentioned, this is upcoming part of North Bay. So when we took over the building and we've seen what was happening and what who we were facing, I did make sure that I made tours to the neighboring houses just to pick their brain on how they pursue this building. And there was police presence like twice a week, and it was quite and that wasn't only one owner talking about that, so I'm okay. At some stage, I went up there with my colleague to replace the parts of roof because it was leaking, and the quote sometimes up north. Sometimes you just know I'm not paying this type of money for this, right? It's not worth it. So I just went up there and did it myself with my colleague. And even during that visit, it was maybe 4 hour, 5 hour job. Yeah, there was like 2 cruisers coming over, right? And asking questions and disturbance and this and that. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it was an interesting thing to learn. And I think talking to the neighbors also helps, and letting them know if you're comfortable with that you're the owner, you're taking care of it, and it's make sure that you maybe not give them your phone number, but certainly give them the property management number just in case something goes unseen. Another thing what we've done, we also are not we've done we haven't done it yet, but we're preparing for putting outside cameras. So we're checking the the bylaws, what it says about that. But it looks like from the initial check and speaking to North Bay City, the outside is not a problem. If it's a common area and it's not pointing to like a door or something, you're good, right? So we want to do that because there's a couple of things. Not only you make sure that your property is safe, I also pay for snow removal. So I want to make sure that I pay for service that is done because when you go up there, I like to go up there and check it out maybe 3-4 times a year. Of course, if there's no other issues. And I've seen situations where I was told that the snow was removed, but it really wasn't, right? So these type of little things, right? It's make sure that there's more lights around the house, right? We had a break-in into the basement. Basement is not finished completely. It's like a stone foundation type of thing, right? And the fact that the person broke in, of course, they usually do not shut the window after that. The pipes, froze and they broke.
Oh no!
Right? So all these small things that you learn as you also need to get to know the building and what's happening, right? So we put steel crete in the window and put the window back in, and so small things like this. But when it was kind of expected if we're buying in that part of the town, but I didn't think that this would happen. Somebody breaks in and the pipes all of a sudden go, right? So that was another like $1,000. That was you need to be ready for this type of thing, right? But we have a working capital, and the way we underwrite them, we always make sure that we have a comfortable just amount of money that sits there just in case something goes funny.
100%. And so they just broke in to steal. It wasn't like a squatter like breaking in to like sleep there.
Yeah, they slept there. But
they were going there to like squat then.
That's right.
Oh.
Right. So they weren't stealing anything. But it doesn't change the fact that they're breaking, and hopefully they had a good sleep. But they should have closed the window behind them, right? So.
At least be courteous, right?
This is it.
You're gonna squat, at least close the window for us.
Right. That's right. I hope you had a good night. Not safe, right? It's like leave the place as you saw it, right? So, but no, they didn't.
That's funny. So are you going to use like a different kind of window or something there? Or are you going to block that kind of window? Like what's your plan so that someone doesn't try to again go and sleep in your basement?
We got lucky that Home Depot had it. It was 24 by 32, I think, or so they measured it. I went to Home Depot website, and in North Bay they had it. So I ordered it, and they just picked it up and fitted it in. Now,
but it's a special type of window,
no,
or like just the same one, but
just a fixed one. It didn't even open because they broke the other one in order to get in. Yeah. And I also put the like a metal crate behind on the outside just for them not to be able to get in again.
Yeah. Because they have, for example, I know for buildings, because we see the same thing happening in Hamilton. Notice for usually the basement windows, same thing, they all get broken. And so they have these special windows with metal inside, like, so that I guess it's harder for people to break in, or I guess even just prevents someone from thinking because it's kind of like a metal grate, but it's in the glass.
Oh, I didn't know.
Something that maybe you may want to check in it. I mean, if it happens again. Maybe finding something that makes it more harder for them to try to break in.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, we have them even in the house that we have. I'm sitting in right now. We have these plastic ones. So if that can be metal. Makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. And but that's a crazy story actually that you had that happen in there. I feel like that should be a normal a problem that we should have started from the beginning. Someone coming in, sleeping, breaking our window. Especially that's what I wanted to say specifically. Yeah, I feel like with probably how cold it was there, probably was it just one night of it, or maybe never even it was one night. Yeah, because the cold there is so severe that it'll just freeze the pipes very quickly. And luckily yours was actually just freezing in the basement, because then imagine we knew someone or actually a couple people, but one specifically where it was basically two floors got destroyed because it was the pipes froze at the very top floor, and then just went all the way down into the basement. So at least in your case, and it sounds like it was an unfinished basement, so it was just more drying, cleaning up, and not really that big of a deal in the sense of finishing back up again or anything.
That's right. So it's part of the game. It's like you get immune to these things. I didn't even think of that when we started talking about it. It just came back to me. It was such a small incident one night, as you say, right? So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that happened too, right? So you just need to. it comes. It's part of the game. If you can handle it,
Yeah.
well, make sure you can handle it before you jump into that.
Yeah. 100%. I just wanted to reemphasize some points that you made that I thought that were really good. Because like that, the exact you're saying, like let's say lawn care or getting your driveway plowed, it is true. I thought that's another good reason to have cameras is just not only for vigilance, because like you said, probably the area is not the best. So it's kind of good to have the cameras just to deter people from coming or just to see what happens, but also for the fact of just making sure the work is actually getting done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a good point because we've had the same thing where we don't have cameras on us, but we're always, they'll send us videos and show and send pictures because yeah, if you don't check up on them, they'll probably be in bed. Yeah, it was done while they're sleeping.
Exactly. Hey, money
And then you
coming
get a
in.
call
Goodbye.
from the tenant like the driveways are full of snow, and we're like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's that's what I spotted when I visited. So I'm like, okay, well, just another thing that you might consider for your portfolio, right? If you're
Yeah, and
able
it's
to.
always like that, these little things that happen. And this is where the solution mindedness comes, right? It's just like a problem comes and you're thinking, how can I improve this? Like you're saying, okay, I've had this problem that they're not plowing the driveway. Well, at least now I have the cameras to double check while they tell me it's been done and I can see actually if it's been done. So I think I think our mindsets really start changing, right? As real estate investors, it's not really about the problem anymore. It's about, okay, how do we make this better for next time? How do I make
Exactly.
this like either completely remove the problem so it doesn't happen again or minimize it from happening again
Yeah.
or minimizing the problem so much, which I think is basically our jobs as investors, no?
I fully agree. That's exactly what you said, Benga. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. It was so fun to hear about your
Thank you.
project. And if you guys love what you hear from Pavel, he's going to be tagged on this. You'll be able to follow him through there if you want to see what Pavel's up to these days. And if you love watching my shows, follow me too, because we always have a show. Every Thursday we have a show on, and same thing we even have in my Facebook group. We also have shows for mindset and just general real estate topics. So feel free to follow me on either two because we always have stuff going on. Thank you, Pavel, for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone. We'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.